Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well, and I hope that this video lecture finds you doing well and that your week is going well and that everything is going well for you, both school-wise and otherwise. And the purpose of this video lecture is to talk to you just a little bit about the iSearch paper and to talk a little bit about some things you want to keep in mind as you get ready to structure and think about putting this iSearch essay together. So what I'm going to use for this video lecture today is the lecture notes that I put in the module. So you may want to open those and follow along as we look at it, or you may want to print off a copy and follow along as we go through the information, because I just wanted to kind of explain to you what this is. This is a really unique type of essay, but I think it's a great essay because it's going to pull together everything that we've been doing all semester. It's going to pull some of the narrative writing that we did from the beginning of the semester. It's going to pull some of the analysis writing that we've done over the course of the semester, including taking information from other sources and other pieces of information that is not our own and working that into an essay. And it's also going to give you the opportunity and the flexibility to choose your own topic and to write about something that is interesting to you. So that's the focus of this lecture, and I'm going to try to keep this as brief as I possibly can, but I did want to go over the lecture notes with you just briefly, just to talk about the structure, the format, and the setup of an iSearch paper. So I'm going to share my screen. I have already pulled up the lecture notes, so I'm going to show those here and let you take a look at those, and we'll just kind of go through this. I'm not going to read all of this right now. I'm not going to go through line by line every single individual step that's here, but I did want to take a few minutes to kind of talk about the format and the structure of an iSearch essay, because probably by now some of you are thinking, what are we going to do with this particular paper? What is an iSearch essay? What is it? So let me start first with that question and dealing with the issue concerning that, which is, what is an iSearch paper? So I'm just going to read this to you, and then I'll explain a little bit more about what this is. Keep in mind that as we get into this and look at these lecture notes, everybody has chosen a different topic. Some of you have chosen texting and driving. Some of you have taken some aspect of social media that we use and talk about and are going to focus on and talk about the issues and concerns and problems and benefits, or a mix of all of those with those social media platforms. Some of you have chosen fake news and corporate ownership of the media. Whatever you've chosen, everybody's kind of working on a different topic and pursuing their own path here. So as we talk about some of this, I want you to keep in mind your topic and the issues that you want to focus on for your particular topic for this essay, because not every single thing that is listed in these lecture notes may apply to your topic. Some of them may apply more strongly than others, and you'll see that as we get to this. So I just wanted to read this aloud just so you get a sense of what an iSearch paper is, if you're unfamiliar with that term or if you've never heard of one before. The iSearch paper is designed to teach the writer and the reader something valuable about a chosen topic and about the nature of searching and discovery. As opposed to the standard research paper where the writer assumes a detached and objective stance, the iSearch paper allows you, the writer, to take an active role in your search, to experience some of the hunt for facts and truths firsthand, and to provide a step-by-step record of the discovery. The final draft will describe chronologically the process you went through in investigating the topic and the research question. The I in iSearch means you can write in first person, that you're an interactive and reactive participant in the writing process. In a more formal research paper, which you'll probably be assigned in other courses, the use of I is often not appropriate. In a formal research essay, a writer cannot say, for example, I think or I feel. In contrast, the iSearch paper invites you to talk about the research journey from your point of view, asking you to reflect and analyze using I. An iSearch paper also calls for you to tell, in the form of a story, every step of the search which led to the answer to your research question, including the dead ends and failures, and even the successes, which means that you're kind of drafting your paper as you proceed along with the search, rather than waiting till you have all of the information and kind of cobbling it all together at the last minute before you decide what you're actually going to write. It also means that readers are aware of the frustrations as the search and the research process for you unfolded. Even if the research questions are not answered, the paper can still be written with explanations to readers at the end of the essay that the question remains unanswered, and what was learned and what was worthwhile, or how you would do the search differently if given to you a second time. So that's a lot of information, and that is a lot of sort of word salad that maybe you're not familiar with, some terminology that you're not familiar with, but I think one of the things that you'll like about this essay is you can write in narrative and you can write in first person. And as it said earlier, instead of writing a more traditional research paper where you're taking that third person point of view, think about what we did with essay 3, where I asked you to kind of not use I and sort of reflect solely on Duckworth, Dweck, and Pink, and focusing solely on what they had to say about grit instead of your own personal feelings and beliefs, and what's the big takeaways we need to learn about understanding grit from their research and their work. We're kind of taking the same approach. We're not taking the same approach, rather, here. Here you can use I, but you're going to kind of recount for the audience and the reader not only the search, but also what you learned from the search as you researched your topic. And you might have seen that word research question. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, if you'll think back to the assignment sheet that I gave you when you were selecting your topics for this paper, I put some questions and some prompts in some of those subject matters. Those would be examples of a research question. So a research question, if you're doing texting and driving, for example, an example of a research question might be, is texting and driving committed mostly by young adults, people from the ages of 18 to 30? Or what is the prevalence of older Americans getting involved in accidents while texting and driving? And that might be your parents' age or your grandparents' age. That's a research question. If you're doing corporate ownership of the media, a research question that might guide this paper would be something like, when did corporate ownership of the media really take hold? Why did corporate ownership of the media come about? Will corporate ownership of the media ever slow down, or will it ever end, or will we ever get to a point where our media sources, our newspapers, our radio stations, and TV stations are locally owned by people in our community and in our states? Those are examples of research questions. So some of you may have used those from the assignment sheet. I know a couple of you have come up with your own approach in looking at your topic selections, and so either one of those is fine. But once you identify what that research question is and kind of what aspect of this iSearch or what aspect of your topic that you're going to be writing about, then you can apply that to this iSearch paper. So just to keep in mind when you're writing this iSearch paper, you're welcome to use I, you're welcome to use first person, but you still want to maintain an academic tone in this. So you want to watch slang language, you want to watch cliches. I've talked to you, all of you variously or in various moments about that. In your assignments, you want to make sure that you have clear sentences, no sentence fragments, that your sentence structure is good. All of those things we expect in academic writing, we want to have that present here. You will cite sources from your research, and I'll talk about that here in just a second. And you want to think about this being appealing to a broad academic audience. What do I mean by that? You want someone who's familiar with the topic, not familiar with the topic, to be able to access the information and kind of understand what happened to you during the search process. So there's going to be several parts to organizing your paper. Now, while we're all choosing the same topic and we've all chosen the same topic, everybody's format for how this essay is going to be structured will look the same. So everybody's going to kind of follow this template here in putting your essay together. And the first section is part 1, the lead. And this is where you talk a little bit about what got you interested in this topic. What was it that got you really focused on wanting to research more about whatever topic it is that you chose? So if it's texting and driving, for example, you may open part 1 with a story about you being involved in an accident where the driver that caused the accident was texting and driving. You may open the essay in your part 1 section with a story about someone you know, a friend or family member that's been involved in an accident where the driver was texting and driving. If it is something with social media, maybe you're writing about the benefits or pitfalls of Instagram. Maybe you've had someone in your life or someone you know that's been catfished by someone who has been on Instagram, or someone was misrepresenting themselves in some way, and they reached out to someone and developed this relationship with someone you know. Then the person that you know ultimately found out that this other person wasn't exactly who they say they were. And we have all kinds of examples of that if you follow the news every day or periodically, in terms of where that happens, where someone says that they're an adult and they're actually a child, or someone says that they're a businessman and they're not, or someone says that they're this and they're that. And so examples of that might be a way to lead in. This may be something, you may have picked your topic because of something you've talked about in another class. Maybe texting and driving was something you were exposed to in a business class. maybe corporate ownership of the media or fake news is something that you talked about in one of your journalism classes this semester, and that's what got you interested in it. And you could write about that. You could write about where you first heard about fake news. Or I was in my, journalism 101 class over in Farley Hall, and we talked a little bit about fake news. And even though we didn't go into a whole lot of depth about it, it's something that piqued my interest, and I decided to revisit that for this paper, so on and so forth. There's a variety of ways you can set that up. But you should have some kind of an introduction which gives the reader a sense of why did you choose this topic. Part 2, you will talk about what do you want to find out. So in a few paragraphs, you want to write about what do you hope to accomplish in this research. And it can be specifically related to your topic, or it can be specifically related to research in general. So if you don't feel comfortable with research, or you haven't done a lot of research in the past, you can mention that here. You can mention that you want to learn more about texting and driving, or you want to learn more about corporate ownership of the media, or you want to learn more about catfishing, or whatever it is that you're writing about. But you also want to find out maybe more about how to research well. Where do I go to get sources? Where do I go to get quality sources? How do I know if my information is accurate and correct? All of those kinds of statements can be worked into part 2. So you want to think about and tell the reader, what is it that you want to find out as you go on this research? As you've chosen this topic, you're going to go out and find some research sources, and you watch that other lecture video, which shows you how to access the library databases. So how are you going to go about doing this? So what do you want to find out, and what do you think maybe you're going to experience as you kind of go on this process? And again, it can be related to your topic, or it can just be talking about research in general, or it could be a little mix of both. You kind of take that in whatever direction that you want to do, but you should address what you want to find out. What do you want to learn more about your topic as you go through this process? And maybe what do you want to learn more about research as you go? Now, part 3, this is kind of the big section here. This is kind of the meat and potatoes, I would say, or the guts of the iSearch essay. And this is called the story of my search. This is where you're going to tell the reader in sort of a narrative style where you went to find information, why you chose that particular source to consider, what did you discover about your topic in reading that source, and what did you like or dislike about that particular source. So an example might be if you're doing texting and driving, and you might start off part 3 by simply saying that in using my topic texting and driving, the first place I went and looked was the Academic One Premier database through the library databases at Ole Miss. When I put in the search terms texting and driving, I was totally surprised that 1,231 search results came up. At first, I was overwhelmed. I didn't know where to look first. So I just started clicking on the first 2 articles that I discovered. As I was reading, I came across an article titled blah, 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 written by blah, 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 published in and on this date, and it was concerning these issues of texting and driving. And so you'll write about what did you learn once you got into that source. What did you learn about texting and driving? What did you learn? What were some statistics, facts, concepts, ideas that you learned from that process? In that moment, that is where you will put in your in-text citations. That is where you will pull information from the source, just like we did for the GRIT essay. You'll pull it from the source that you have consulted. And then you can close out that section by saying, I thought this was a great source. This was a source that maybe I thought was going to be great at first, but after I got into it, it wasn't as detailed or as in-depth as I needed, et cetera, et cetera. So you'll do that. You'll kind of take that idea and replicate that 3 times for each of the 3 sources. So when you get to the story of my search, you're going to tell us, you're going to kind of address the 5 W's, the who, what, when, where, why, and how. Where did you go? When did you go? Why did you go? Who wrote it? Who published it? When was it published? What did you learn about it? And then ultimately, how did you feel overall from a source perspective? How did you feel in terms of its success or failure as being a source related to your topic? So that's going to be the largest section of the iSearch essay, is taking the reader through that process, taking the reader through the 3 places that you looked, the 3 sources that you consulted, what you learned from those 3 sources, and ultimately how you felt that source was in terms of helping you learn more about your topic. And then we'll have part 4, which is you'll talk a little bit about what did you discover? what did you learn through this process? What did you learn about research? What did you learn about your topic? What did you learn about looking at secondary research sources? What did you learn about yourself maybe as a student or a researcher? I have a lot of students that will say with this assignment, for example, in part 4, that they really thought they weren't very good at research, but after they went through this process and they got to the end, they realized that they're pretty good at research, or they're not as bad as they thought, or they maybe approached this paper and this assignment with a fear of databases or a fear of accessing databases to find information. And then one of the things they discovered is that, hey, you know what? I can do this. I can access those databases, and it's not as difficult as I had made it out to be in my own head. So you can write about that, but you also want to focus on mainly, what did you learn about your topic? What surprised you? What caught your attention? Maybe there were some sources that reinforced information that you already knew. It just depends on your topic. It depends on kind of what your research question is, but you'll address those issues in part 4. And then part 5 will be the works cited page. You will have a list of the sources, the 3 sources that you researched and that you wrote about in part 3. So I've just got some other things to keep in mind with writing the iSearch paper. I mentioned that a travel journal is a good idea. I kind of have taken the travel journal concept and put it as another assignment in the module, which you'll see a little bit later on. So I won't say much about that in terms of kind of capturing in a note-taking form the story of your search. You can come up with a title for this, a creative title if you want to. You don't have to, but I have a lot of students that after going through this assignment that they have really a catchy phrase, or they have sort of an interesting title they want to work into the essay. You're welcome to do that if you want to. If you don't, you just want to start with the first part, that's fine too. Some students want to use headings, and some students want to have the headings that say, the story of my search, what I discovered, and then have the paragraphs below that. That's perfectly fine. If you want to do that, I know sometimes that helps people stay organized. You can put those headings in there. If you don't want to use them, that's fine too. But again, I have a lot of students that feel like as they're drafting and putting this together, having those headings make sure that they remind themselves to put information in the right place. And if you want to do that, that's fine. So some other pointers about the essay. Hope you've picked a topic that you're interested in. Please don't pick a topic because you think it's something I want to read. I want you to pick a topic that you're interested in, something that you want to learn more about, or something that maybe you know a little bit about, but you want to learn more. So you want to make sure that you indicate the topic question, the research question in that first section in the lead. So when you're explaining to us why did you choose that topic, you want to tell the reader, this is my research question. For example, is texting and driving something that is committed mostly by young adults, or is texting and driving something that impacts older adults, or when did corporate ownership of the media begin? Why did corporate ownership of the media occur? Whatever your question is, you want to mention that in the lead. And again, we've talked about the general audience. We've talked about using academic language. You're welcome to use and pull direct quotes from your sources, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later if you're unfamiliar with that. And you want to make sure that you follow the citation guidelines, and we'll talk more about in-text citations and the works cited page in the next module. And some of you all have a good background in that, and some of you are a little unsure about that. And so we'll talk about how to do in-text citations in the works cited page. Luckily, we do them in MLA format in Writing 101, and so that's the easiest of all the citation styles that are out there. So we'll get into more of that. So that's basically my lecture for this particular session. I just kind of wanted to walk through the lecture notes with you. I encourage you to go back and read those again. We didn't cover every little point that's in there. Keep in mind, not every little factoid that is in those sections you have to address necessarily in your paper. Especially because your topics are different and your research questions are different. Even if you've chosen the same topic, even if 2 of you are doing texting and driving, for example, each of you might have a different research question. And so somebody might be focusing on enforcement, law enforcement's role in stopping texting and driving, while somebody else is focusing on which groups of people are committing texting and driving mistakes and accidents the most. It's up to you. It just kind of depends on what direction that you're taking. But I wanted you to kind of see how the paper is going to be set up, how the parts kind of break down. And again, everybody's going to have all the same parts, all 5 of those parts for this essay, no matter what your topic is. So I wanted to walk you through that. So I encourage you to go back and read through that again. The assignment sheet is also located here, and you can kind of see more specifics. So we're looking at about, folks, we're looking at about 3 to 5 pages in length for this particular assignment. You know, we aren't writing a book, we aren't writing a thesis or a dissertation, but you do want to spend some time, especially in part 3, specifically and clearly talking about the story of your search. Where did you go for information? Why did you go there? Who published it? Who wrote it? What did you learn from it? Most importantly, what are some pieces of information you learned about your topic from that source, and ultimately weighing the effectiveness of that source? That's really important. You really want to spend a lot of time there. So we're looking at about 3 to 5 pages. And I'll be honest, if you're doing a really good iSearch paper, you're probably going to be in the 4 to 5 page range. If you find yourself with just 3 pages of writing after you put those 4 sections together, you may want to go back and look at some areas where you can be a little more detailed and a little more specific. So most of these assignments are going to run probably more to the higher end of the page range than the lower end, but I just wanted to make you aware of that. So this is a great assignment that introduces research. It helps you practice the skills of research that will be helpful to you in other writing courses that you take or in other courses that you'll have in college, but it sort of takes away some of the threat, or I don't say threat, or the fear of the research paper. So we're doing research and we're looking at research in an academic way, and we're kind of putting you in the role of being a scholar, but we're not necessarily focused on the formalities of the research paper. So that's why I like the iSearch paper, and I know it's been very popular with my students in the past. So I encourage you to ask me questions. I encourage you to come by and see me. I encourage you to reach out if you have questions on this assignment. We'll look at a sample iSearch paper as we get a little bit closer to the end of the semester, so you can kind of see what one looks like with all those parts put together and have a model to look at and to follow. So we'll get into that. We'll talk more about citations and works cited pages also a little bit later on. But for right now, I wanted to just give you some insight into what the paper is like and how it's set up. So hope you're doing well. Please take care. Reach out to me if you have any questions or concerns, and I'll talk to you again soon.